So if you know, does everyone know who Dun& Bradstreet is?
I do now. I read the Wikipedia page.
All right. So it's kind of funny. We've been around about 180 years. We've had 4 presidents work at our company. Lincoln was actually about 3 of the 4 were either assassinated or attempted assassination, so you can probably figure it out. So I'm not going to run for president. But it's a very old company. We actually bought the first typewriter in a business scenario. So there's a lot of history at Dun & Bradstreet. And with that comes a lot of products, a lot of different points of view, a lot of things that we've been successful at and things that we've kind of missed the ball on, like buying LinkedIn when it was small, oops, or selling Gartner, that was another oops. But we've done a great job in building relationships between companies using things like credit scores for companies. So we actually provide your credit scores. I can tell you your credit score if you like for your business. I can also tell you a lot about all the companies in the world. But what's interesting about our product, and by the way, this is coming from a really big product background where we use Bloomfire. So this is a much more technology-focused use case, a lot more product focus and pushing out and having conversations with the internal community. And we've built a new technology which actually provides a lot of data to our customers through an API. Shocking, right? New technology, APIs. Wow. We're a little behind it, but we've had it, but then we needed to productize it. But at the same time, we had a sales force that the average person had been there probably about 25 years, 30 years. So imagine trying to convince everyone how to sell an API. Near to impossible. But with Bloomfire, we actually got there really quickly, and that's the cool thing. So our API does a lot, seamlessly integrates. You know, I want to talk about where we're coming from and why we're here. It's, like I said, older group of users or salespeople. We actually have a layer of solutions architect like myself. There's a handful of us, actually more than that, probably about 20, supporting a sales force of about 800 to 1,000 salespeople. So if you can imagine, these 20 people were the most important people to understand what technology is good for our customers and how to position it, how to get questions answered. So if you have 800 salespeople asking you questions, getting to an answer was very, very important and very fast. And so as I came on board to DMV a few years ago, we began to have a lot of problems around our product in launching the API. The first one was we actually had an inbox where somebody sat there and answered questions all day. Now, that was it. Like, that's how we were answering, because people, that's the only way they communicated in the past 20 years, and that's the only way they like to communicate. So we had a lot of, where does my user get his license key? What's an API? What does SOAP mean? What does REST mean? I mean, just typical technology questions, but they didn't really know the answers. So we had one guy answering all the questions. We had chatter that kind of helped, but again, it was by opportunity all over the place, and we tried to communicate and consolidate, and it became very problematic for us. We also had different user groups where we would actually do trainings every week for like 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 people. And it was just again, the same repetitive questions, the same training. So our problem was just being able to answer all of this stuff very quickly, and we just didn't have a way to really effectively do that. We had an LMS, but the LMS was one-way conversation, and if you think 800 people are actually going to watch an hour video about APIs, salespeople, we don't know whether they watched it or not, and if they did, the value, was it there or not? We're not sure. So we focused on how to effectively train a team, how to get answers out in a reasonable time to our sales folks, because they're trying to close deals, and so we had people coming up and saying, great, what's your team's SLA? And you kind of wonder, like, what do you mean? Well, how fast are you going to respond to an inbox? And we were a product team, we're not technical support. So again, more problems. Support didn't even know how to support a new product that came out. I mean, in a world of agile development, getting that information out to that amount of people was very difficult, and our timelines were very short. Marketing, we were all over the place, right? We had everyone making their own PowerPoints, and granted, the product marketing team was doing their best job, but even then, Salesforce can only go so far, and intranet can only go so far. So our problem around that came down to a community, and we looked at a lot of communities out there, but after weeks of standing up a couple of open sources and looking at something like Salesforce communities and looking at other forum type technologies, none of them had the search capability and the things that we were looking for. So this actually, we broke it down to this small of a list, which interestingly enough, some of the stuff kind of fell off. But if we start at the top of private forums, now a lot of the more, I guess, I don't want to say advanced, but I don't know, Hideo, how do you call your company? Like a progressive, thank you, company.
Sure, we'll take it.
Yeah, cool. The idea that everyone can just be part of the community and get answers and everyone's gonna be kumbaya was a really bad idea in our company. Like probably the worst idea you could come with. Because we had products that are being launched and questions that are being answered by product folk or support people that salespeople should never know about, because then they're either gonna be very, either it was not fully correct around the context of the question, they're just obviously answering one little snippet, or it was about something new that we're building and it wasn't launched yet and they're selling it. And next thing you know, yeah, you're
Never happens.
you're up a creek without a paddle. And so the whole idea of private communities was a big deal for us. And before, when we started this about, gosh, close to a year and a half ago, the idea groups didn't exist. So we had to build multiple communities and it was a sharing problem. I'm sure some of you know that feeling, and now we're kind of taking a step back right now and redoing that idea. So it's not like the answer we had originally is going to solve it forever. We're having to flip it on its coin and change that mentality, because as well as our community worked within our architects, it didn't work for salespeople, and only because they didn't get it. And now we're having to change it to more of a, instead of a group by group mentality, to, I think we're going to move to a more product centric mentality. Email was a big thing again to us. So we had, one of the biggest use cases was people need to respond by email and people need to talk by email. And that still exists today. But I think Bloomfire really solved that with its functionality to communicate through email, not really integrate with Exchange, because that wasn't going to just solve it. It had to be a little bit more fluid. Our search mentality was really something that we looked at as importance. Without that keyword search, I don't think we would have survived. And mobility, surprisingly, I think we were at dinner the other day and I was like, hey man, your mobile app's killing me. We need a new one. And I'm really excited because the new one looks amazing. But I think the mobility aspect really kind of got lost because there was only 20 people that cared about managing all this content, and 800 salespeople that we're looking to kind of build a community with need something better. And they're not going to be on a laptop, ever. I don't think they actually know how to work laptops. They maybe to put orders in. And then code snippets and managing of the code. So we again, we're an API-centric product, and pushing all these things out became a lot of feature-centric things for us. We had to narrow down. We had a lot of, and unfortunately, we kind of went to analysis paralysis, trying to figure out what was the best tool, and it bogged me down. And then one day, we popped around, and I saw Bloomfire, and we put it up in 5 minutes. And I didn't care about how pretty it looked. I didn't care about all the content. But as we got questions from that inbox, we just started pushing people in there. We're like, you know what? We're not answering it here. Go ask the question in Bloomfire. And before I knew it, I had some of the most intense, passionate people driving my community. So, we don't have a community manager. It's just us, 20 people, solutions architects that are answering everything. What really became interesting was we did not open it up. We didn't say, hey, come join the community. People asked us to come in to the community, which is a crazy mentality, because then you're like, well, that's a bad idea, because then no one's going to use it. Actually, quite the opposite. The people that wanted in are in because they cared. And the whole idea that you're joining a community was really more of a I guess, pull versus push mentality. So I didn't push it to them. They came to me. And what we found was some of the experts started popping up in there to answer some better questions. So our tech team, our support team. And it was kind of funny because as we kind of evolved this thing to a sales group or a marketing group, I found that model continued to work for us. It was kind of scary but funny. We were like, wow, there's a lot of requests today. Why? Because the content's there. And that really kind of put a big interest into where we were going with it, and the fact that we were doing it right. Now, granted, we still have problems cleaning stuff up, because again, we're doing it all in our spare time, and data's there, and it gets kind of messy. But I think after these sessions, we're really going to go back and think about it. So, sorry about the eye chart. It was a test. There's a test at the end. So, and it's all the words at the bottom here. No, I'm kidding. So we launched it in 5 minutes. I was like, done. I'm putting my credit card down. Let's just do this. And I wasn't scared because there was nothing else there. And I think that's where, I heard a lot of people talk about, well, there's a process and you have to teach people how to tag. And granted, Bloomfire has now advanced quite a few steps further than when I started. So the idea of groups, categories, tags, kind of, yes, it's getting to me a little bit because now I have to organize it all. But we found out that there was a lot of passion there, and in that grew the community. So it's incredible. So the stakeholders, we ensured that we designated stakeholders, and they kind of popped in and out. Like someone was here. I mean, people leave the company, people come back, but it's important that we designated them, and the ones that didn't drop off, and we replaced them. And that was it. I just went to a manager, said, hey, this isn't working, we need somebody else to help me out. And surprisingly, the managers got it. We started small. Like I said, we started with a small community and kind of grew that out. I guess kind of like Facebook mentality, right? One university at a time, and before you knew it, we had a lot of universities. And that was really great. And we committed to answering everything, even if it was, we don't have an answer. Because at least someone coming back to that knew that there wasn't an answer. And I think that kind of drove the people coming back to it. And what ended up happening was one less inbox to manage. That one was really key to me, because we actually just stopped that inbox from happening, which was like, we stopped the bleeding. And we 99% questions answered. I think one of them wasn't answered when I ran this report. But engagement was 80%. And this included managers who never really go on to Bloomfire, which I don't know why. I guess they were very busy. But what we found is that the people that, again, were passionate in it were pretty high. And I don't know if 80% is low or high, but for me, in a company this size, with this many levels of communication, intranet, Salesforce, Chatter, LMS, email, IM, like it is, if we don't answer the question on there, we're gonna get a phone call. Actually, 5 people will get a phone call. 6 people will get an email. It was very dodgy. So it's a very corporate view of it, but that's kind of where we found a lot of success in our community. And we saved about 2 hours a day. So in reality, we saved, someone's life, is the way I look at it. Because I'll tell you that inbox. We would joke because the way that inbox started was if you just joined the company to the API team, you were in charge of the inbox, and that was your kind of. I know it was the saddest thing ever. I was there for a month, and then we hired someone. I was like, yes, I'm done. So, but I think what we found was that this was a really successful way to make a difference and quickly encapsulate how a community can strive to be something without a lot of work, and it's a very different. So as we expand, which we're talking about how to do that. I think the idea of other products coming back in is scary for me because I have such success, and we're pushing hard to fight off the idea of your LMS